Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my whole obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Apologize for the late start. It's from Canto 2, Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 6, Purusha Shukta Confirmed. And this morning we're doing text 9 and 10. So I'll chant text 9 when I start, and then when it gets to text 10, those who want to chant can chant that particular text also. So without further ado, we'll start. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari, Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajagacharya Sto Dasa Sishimaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajagacharya Sto Dasa Sishimaris Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय। गंगामाई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। सामवेद भक्तविंद की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Lord Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nityanamani. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddhartmani Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namani. Narayana Namaste Chanarun Chevam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Vidirayat Nashta Praishwa Badresu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhagavato Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, going devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 9. Pāyur yamasya mitrasya parimokṣasya Nārada hiṁsāyā mṛtyor nirayasya gudaṁ smṛtaḥ. Pāyur yamasya mitrasya parimokṣasya Nārada hiṁsāyā mṛtyor nirayasya gudaṁ smṛtaḥ. Pāyur yamasya mitrasya parimokṣasya Nārada hiṁsāyā mṛtyor nirayasya gudaṁ smṛtaḥ. Word for word translation. Pāyur, the evacuating outlet. Yamasya, the controlling deity of death. Mitrasya, of Mitra. Parimokṣasya, of the evacuating hole. Nārada, O Nārada. Hiṁsāyā, of envy. Nirṛter, of misfortune. mṛtyor, of death. Nirayasya, of hell. Gudaṁ, the rectum. smṛtaḥ is understood. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Nārada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord, is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra. And the evacuating hole in the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. Now we go to text 10. And after this text, if you want to chant, you can chant. parābhūter adharmasya tamasaś cāpi paścimaḥ nada-nadīnāṁ gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ parābhūter adharmasya tamasaś cāpi paścimaḥ nada-nadīnāṁ gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ parābhūter adharmasya tamasaś cāpi paścimaḥ nada-nadīnāṁ gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ. Hare Krishna. Please unmute and chant if you want to. Hare Krishna.
parābhūter adharmasya tamasaś cāpi paścimaḥ nāḍyo nadīnāṁ ca gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. parābhūter tamasaś cāpi paścimaḥ nāḍyo nada-nadīnāṁ ca gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ. Hare Krishna.
Parābhūter adharmasya tamasaś cāpi paścimaḥ nāḍyo nada-nadīnāṁ ca gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. Parābhūter adharmasya tamasaś nāḍyo-nadīnāṁ ca gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. Parābhūter adharmasya tamasaś cāpi paścimaḥ nāḍyo-nadīnāṁ ca gotrāṇām asthi-saṁhatiḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Right. Word for word. Parābhūter of frustration. Adharmasya of immorality. Tamasa of ignorance. Cha and cāpi as also. Paścimaḥ, the back. Nāḍyo of the intestines. Nada of the great rivers. Nadīnāṁ of the rivulets. Cha also. Gotrāṇām of the mountains. Asthi, bones. Saṁhatiḥ, accumulation. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In order to defy the impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a systematic analysis of the physiological and anatomical constitution of his transcendental body is given here. It is clear from the available description of the body of the Lord, his universal form, that the form of the Lord is distinct from the forms of ordinary mundane conception. In any case, he is never a formless void. Ignorance is the back of the Lord, and therefore the ignorance of the less intelligent class of men is also not separate from his bodily conception. Since his whole body is the complete whole of everything that be, one cannot assert that he is impersonal only. On the contrary, the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both impersonal and personal simultaneously. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord, and his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. Those who are fortunate enough to have a view of the Lord from the front can realize his personal feature, whereas those who are frustrated and are thus kept on the ignorance side of the Lord, or in other words, those who have the view of the Lord from the back, realize him in his impersonal feature. Oma Gnati Mirandasya Gyana Gana Shalakaya. Chakshu Militam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschathyadi Shatarini. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gauratishe Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shri Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. So we'll go to the English translation beginning from text 9. O Nārada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra. And the evacuating hole in the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. I'm trying to get this cursor to work here. Okay, text 10. English translation. The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Hare Krishna. So the universal form is still being described to Nārada by his father, or Brahma. And in the first text, there are two texts today, text 9 and 10. And quite a bit is described in text 9, even though it doesn't have a purport. It says, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death. The evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. Now, the universal form is a form that is to help those who cannot perceive of the personal form, or their minds just can't latch on to believe that there's a personal form of the Lord. Those are given this description of the material world and the planets and the things that are also part of how the material world operates. All of them have been put into a personal description, so that knowing that those things are true, the planets are there, envy and misfortune, death, hell, all of those are there, then they can relate to that in some sort of a form of a person. But the Lord is related to, if you really want to get into a wonderful, loving relationship, it has to be with the personality. That's why we call Krishna first supreme, because nobody is at his level. Nobody is over him in terms of ability and possession. Apart from that is the next word, personality. And that's what brings us to the form of, or the realization that God is a person. In fact, we are persons because he's a person. But then he has other parts too that are impersonal, like his effulgence, the Brahma-jyoti emanating from him. That doesn't have form. But the Lord has form from the hairs on his head all the way down to his toes, his lotus feet. So this is for those who can't quite relate to the Lord as a person. And sometimes you say, well, how is that so? Well, there's a lot in this material world. Everybody in the spiritual world doesn't have that issue at all. But in material world, all kinds of things are there. As you know, all kinds of religions are there. And they call God different names, and they've never seen him, but they have all kinds of descriptions about him from their books. As in one of the morning walks, Prabhupada was talking to his disciples, and one of them told him that they were invited, him and other godbrothers of his were invited to a school to talk about comparative religion, other religions. And interestingly enough, as they were speaking, this is all recorded, so I'm just listening. And in the middle of it, still Papa interrupted, because the guy, the devotee had talked about different types of religion. Comparative religion means that this religion is like that religion is like that, and then make a comparison as a course, as a subject. So as he was trying to describe what they had been invited to the school to do, Srila Prabhupada interrupted and said, comparative religion, other kinds of religion. There is no other kinds of religion. There's just one religion. Basically, he was saying that he wasn't accepting any other kind of religion. And there is one religion. Years back, thousands of years back, there was one religion. And as Maya stepped in, all kinds of things happened, and other religions broke off and they started forming their own. He even described how Sikhism came to be. In India, he said the reason people became Sikhs was because there was conflict between the Hindus and the Muslims. And so there was an attempt to start a new religion that would be acceptable to both Hindus and Muslims. And so Sikhism came about. Now, what that got to do with God? He asked them to do that? Of course not. That's one religion. And then if you go to the Christian church, there's some Protestant church. Now, while Protestant, the word is protest. Need I tell you more how that came about? So the religions broke off like that. And that's why Krishna himself says, I am the source of both material and spiritual world. Everything emanates from me. And the wise who know that, they worship him with all their hearts. They surrender to me and then worship him with all their hearts. There's only one religion. It's one God, one religion. And the religion is not, he didn't say it was Krishna consciousness. The religion is surrender to Krishna. That's it. Life which is involving surrendering to Krishna. So those who can't relate to the personal form of the Lord, this universal form is available for them to kind of latch on to, just like some religions who will not live based on the Krishna consciousness do's and don'ts have different religions to latch on to. And there are all kinds of breaks there. There's not much of renunciation, not at all, not much tapasya. They don't go through any kind of difficulties that they put on themselves in order to grow. This is what the passion is about. You have to accept some things that normally you wouldn't do because there is something else, a result that you get that is better for your life. Then you go through tapasya. Tapasya means austerity. And you also kind of, some things you just get away from, and those things will lead us to Maya, so you get away from it. And that's the life that the Buddhists live. And that's the life that makes it possible for us to get out. So anyway, this first one, text 9, the evacuating outlet, remember this is the form of the Lord, and we already have the human form, so we know that these things are parts of the human form. So the universal form is kind of being given this different parts of the body, and then so this is the abode of this one is saying the evacuating outlet. The text before that was talking about the generatives, what generates what children, the genitals, male and female. And one word was given to that, generatives. So the Universal form of the Lord's evacuating outlet is the controlling deity of death. Now, it shouldn't surprise anyone that since we ourselves let out things that are not to be kept in the body, get rid of them, then the things that would be in the universal form of the Lord won't be nice things either. It just goes from this plain reasoning through it. So it's not surprising that Lord Brahma is describing that evacuating or the rectum as the abode of or the controlling deity of death, Mitra. And then you talked about the rectum is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, the negative things. So these things described in the universal form is not surprisingly the vices that we should avoid if we have the power to do so. We talked about envy. So let's look at envy. How does envy come about? Envy of Krishna caused us to be born in the material world. Sri Prabhupada describes it that Krishna is very loving. Those who relate to him in the spiritual world, that's every entity relating to the Lord, does so out of their hearts, out of love. And he reciprocates. But everybody is trying to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either directly or through the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And sometimes others look at it since we have free choice. Even here we do. In spiritual world also it is true. Then there's an attempt, oh, I wish I was in Krishna's position receiving all the attention. I wish I was one who could control things, just like he can control things. So I want to be like that. But that's not our position, because he's the Supreme Personality. He's number one, and we want to be number one. The Krishna wants first. Just like everything, even now, if we're going to do something bad, we have a small voice. That's the intelligence. One does that. There is harmful repercussions for what you're going to do. So in the same way, Krishna warned. Thinking that way is not going to land you in a nice situation. Oh, no, 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 no. I still want control of my own life without you being the one to say what to do and what not to do. All right. There's a place for that. Go there and do that. And that is material world. So envy towards Krishna has caused us to come to this material world. And this is a place where everybody is in a suffering condition. Everybody is in anxiety. And people are just trying to live. How am I going to solve my problems of anxiety? But the intelligent ones begin to realize this is the place of anxiety. God is very kind. God is very loving. And I'm going through anxiety. Why? Why am I here? What's going to happen after I die? Then you begin to think, these are the intelligent questions. Anybody that asks those kinds of questions, Krishna immediately, as Paramatma, the super soul, arranges for that person to meet or get into a situation where those answers will come. And that's how you find out about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So envying in this world indicates, envying anyone in this world indicates that we're still harboring that disease of enviousness of Krishna. We still have it. Because if we envy someone, it means they have something we don't have. And we want that. Either a position or an item that we like, but we don't have it, and they have it. Now, if we envy a person for that reason, we're going to envy Krishna. Why? Because Krishna owns everything. Whatever it is that we envy somebody, Krishna has that and more, way more, quantity and quality. So if we envy anyone in this world, it means we will still be in that situation if we were around Krishna to start envying him again. So envy means you can't go back to the spiritual world. You will not be invited back to Vaikuntha. The text also mentions misfortune. Misfortune may be associated with bad karma, sinful reaction. But how does that happen? It's because we are acting in the mode of ignorance. And then we get reactions based on that action in the mode of ignorance. The word ignorance itself is doing something bad to oneself or doing something bad to others. Mode of ignorance. Sometimes people say doing bad to oneself. Yeah, if we destroy the bodies that we have, we're acting in the mode of ignorance. If we drink, if we smoke, those things destroy the body. If we take drugs, knowing very well that it will ruin the body, then we are destroying the body that Krishna has given us. That's more the ignorance. You also that, according to the description of the universal forms, rectum is also a place of death. Death is never welcomed by anyone, not even devotees. For devotees, it's because there's a lot of pain associated with it. It is tolerated because, this is for devotees now, it's looked at as a test to remember Krishna, our last test for living this material world in that particular body, in that particular lifetime. To remember Krishna so we may be promoted to the spiritual world. But the process of dying, when the senses are shutting down, is definitely painful. You can take just one sense. You're trying to breathe and you realize, I'm not able to breathe well. Maybe you were, and the majority of people had their vision. They could see. Very few people are blind compared to the total population of the world. Well, the first time you're dying and your eyes are shut down and you can't see. So you're blind, you're having trouble breathing. That alone, when the breath can't come properly, you can get scared easily. It's very painful also. But speaking about that, the one sense that's the last one to go is the sense of hearing. And that's why devotees, when someone is dying, another devotee is dying, they make sure that they are there to chant the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna mantra, or they have a machine that can play the Hare Krishna mantra in kirtans or bhajans so that the person can hear. And from hearing, they remember. And from remembering, Krishna says, without a doubt, you'll come to me if you remember me at the time of death. So the process of dying is painful. So even devotees don't like it. But we just try to remember Krishna. And other devotees may help us remember Krishna. That's why it's so important to maintain good relationships with devotees, because at the time that we are on our deathbed and we can't talk, that speech also goes, we can't talk, and all the senses are shutting down, we need someone to remind us about the Hare Krishna mantra, therefore, and so that we can remember Krishna. If we begin to burn bridges between us and other devotees, who's going to come to our bedside when we need to hear about Krishna? And you yourselves cannot remember, and we're all kinds of pain. So it is very, very important to relate well to devotees. Take the humble position in situations, not fight situations. Take the humble positions. Managers, they can make decisions. Of course, they're like coaches, so they are in one particular category. But everybody else, maintain good relations, because you're going to need those devotees to come around us. Hellish planets, they also talked about as part of the rectum of the universal form. Hellish planets are, so in this material world, especially the universe that we have here, 14 planetary systems, 7 up, middle planets in terms of a lifestyle, to the heavenly planets, 7 planetary systems up, and then 7 below, lower planetary systems. Below that is what's called the Gabodak Ocean. There is an ocean we can't see with these eyes that we have, but it is there. That's the other half, the bottom half of the universe. There's a space between that, the top of the Gabodak Ocean, and also Pataloka, the lowest of the planet. Now, between that space, that's where the hellish planets are. Now, so the hellish planets are real. There are some religions, and I won't name it because I don't want any controversy. There's some religions that don't even believe that there's hell. They don't believe that there's hell. Not only is there hell, but the locations of the hellish planets are actually indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam. This text, this book we'll be reading this text from. Not, I mean, so much so that even some of the things that happen in some of the hellish planets, and there are thousands of them, they are described by Shukadeva Goswami. He's talking to Maharaj Pariksit. And it's in Canto 5, and the last chapter, chapter 28. And the texts are described because Maharaj Pariksit wanted to ask about what happens there. He asked about what happens in these hellish planets. So we'll talk about just a few of them. The idea is to discourage us from wanting, putting ourselves in situations where we'll be sent to a hellish planet. So, a person who appropriates another's legitimate wife, takes the wife, children, or money, at the time of their death, they are arrested by the Jamadutas, the one that work for Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. They bind that person with rope of time, they call it the rope of time, and then they forcibly throw that person into the hellish planet. It's called Tamishra, the very dark planet. And these Jamadutas, they beat this person and they rebuke him, they insult him. He's starved, he's not given nothing. He's starved and he's given no water. And the assistants of Jamaraj, they cause him severe suffering. Sometimes this person faints and comes back to consciousness and they keep beating him. One thing about all these hellish planets, no matter what they do, the person, of course, does not die. Now, so situation that you cannot be envious of somebody else's wife and take them. One sad situation, I won't mention names, of somebody came and took another woman, and that woman got so attached to him that she literally left her children and ran away with this. I know of 2 cases like that. A person was married and another person just came and took the wife, left the children. Horrible. An envious person. We just talked about envy. An envious person obviously commits violence. At the very least, they will commit verbal violence. They'll insult. But they can commit physical violence also. Envious person commits violent acts against many living entities. Therefore, when that person dies, then Yamaraj arranges for him to be taken to a hell called Rorava. It's called Rorava because there, those living entities who are hurt by this envious person appear as animals. And they're called rurus. And they inflict severe pain on that person. It's described in the Bhagavatam that the ruru is even more envious than a snake. And snakes are the most envious of beings that are known. Animals will usually attack another animal with less strength because they are hungry and they want to kill to eat. That is, the animals that eat flesh. But when the animal is not hungry, they usually won't attack. They just won't. But a snake will attack even if it's not hungry. You come to the territory, it will attack you. Besides, this place is mine, you come, it will just coil and then strike. To the very envious. That's their nature. The rulers are worse, and they're the ones that would actually attack a person like that who is envious. A person who maintains his own body by hurting others. For example, a butcher kills other animals to maintain his body because that's business for them. They are taken to that same hell, and the rulers, those animals, torment him and eat his flesh. So it's constant suffering. Now, for maintaining of the bodies and the satisfaction of their tongues, there are some people who cook poor animals and birds, and sometimes even some aquatics, they cook them alive. I have seen lobsters that are alive tossed into hot water and cooked. And I know, again, I won't name any countries. There are some countries, they start killing and eating animals from the head, open the skull, when the animal is still alive. So such persons are condemned, and in their next life, when they leave this body, they are taken to a hell kumbi, the head is called kumbipaka. And just like they cook these poor animals while alive, they are also cooked in boiling oil. Now, if you've been in the kitchen, you know oil has a higher temperature than water. And water, when it's boiling, it's already unbearable. So when they put in boiling oil, it's horrible, horrible, horrible. There are 28 texts there. I'll just read only about half of them. So just a few more, then we'll go on to the next. A person who deviates from religious principles. Know the religious principles? The servants of Yamaraj put them in a place called asthi-saṁhatiḥ. Asthi-saṁhatiḥ. They beat him with whips, and they can't go anywhere. Wherever they run, the Yamadutas are after him, beating that person. A person who involves themselves in illicit sex. They are also punished in a hell called taptasurmi. They are beaten by the Yamadutas, and they are also forced to embrace a red-hot iron form of a woman if that person was a man, or a red-hot iron form of a man if that person was a woman. That's the punishment for illicit sex. A person who is a government servant, but they don't do their duties according to religious principles. In other words, those who take bribes and all those kind of things, they are in positions of responsibility, but they misuse it like that. They are taken to a hell called Vaitarani. And this place, there are rivers with ferocious aquatic animals in there. And when they get thrown into that, the animals begin to eat them. The river itself is not clean. It's full of stool, urine, pus, blood, hair, nails, bones, marrow, flesh, and fat. That kind of mixture the person is thrown in. So, we'll say one more, or maybe one or two more, they will stop. A person that is a professional arsonist. They set fire to others' houses or administer poison to them, including administering poison. So, they just give poison? Yeah, we're giving that all the time. Guess what they call? Preservatives. It's in our food, but it is poison. And the companies know it, and they do it anyway. So the people who are responsible for that, they'll have to face problems. This planet is called Sarame-dayan. On that planet, there are 720 dogs with teeth that are as strong as thunderbolts. And the agents of Yamaraj direct these dogs to come after those people, sinful people. We'll take one more. A person who in this life is deceptive, a liar, in the business, in this regular life, even giving charity, the lie is always something, ulterior motive, or just plain lies. After that, the agent of Yamaraj is take him to a hell called Avichimat. He has no shelter there. And what they do is there is a mountain. They take them to the top of the mountain, and at the bottom of the mountain, it seems like there's water, and they throw this person, but actually at the bottom of the mountain is not water. It just looks like it's a mirage, but what it is actually stones, big, big, big stones, but they are arranged to look like it's water, and then they throw this person down the mountain, the body broken into pieces. And then the body is put together again and taken to the top of the mountain and thrown again over and over and over again. We said this, all of this, so we would be careful about this life. This life and this place is a place for rehabilitation. So we have to take the rehabilitation process seriously. When we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, we give ourselves a chance not to go to those kind of places. But also, the idea is to be purified. The chanting is to purify us. The chanting is to remember the name of the Lord and what the Lord's instructions are through the agency of the spiritual master, so that we won't have to face some things like this. So, even though the universal form is just to give a sense of what happens to those who, of course, we've talked about quite a few places now in the hellish planets, but those who can't deal with or can't somehow wrap their minds around the personal form of the Lord, this is there for them to kind of get a sense and finally be able to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead eventually. So that's the whole idea of the universal form. So as it is said in Bhagavatam 11th Canto, chapter 3, text 12, the manifestation of the whole Virat Rupa is a temporary display of forms, qualities, and activities. Now you say God is never temporary, but why do we say the Virat Rupa is temporary? Well, the Virat Rupa, we talk about different planets and different parts of the Lord. And sometimes they talk about different activities, just like what we talked about here, death and hell and so on, all related to. And it's done that way so that whatever the person thinks about, whether they're thinking about planets or they're thinking about different things, nice or not so nice, it's all included in this temporary display, the Virat Rupa. It is temporary because the material world itself gets annihilated at some point. And when it gets annihilated, everything goes back to the form of the Lord, Mahavishnu. So at that time, when everything is inside the Lord, there is no universal form. So it's just an imaginary situation to help people to come to the level of personal relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so speaking about the universal form, it's used so many ways. So much so that even the societal orders, the four societal orders, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudras, even that universal form is connected with that. The Brahmanas are the head of the society. Well, the head is the head of, we're talking about the head of the universal form. The Kshatriyas, the administrators and military people, are the arms. The Vaishyas, the business people, they are the waist. And the Shudras, the employees, are the legs. So again, another way of describing the universal form from the societal orders, just so people will look at it from a description of a person. It's all to get the person to finally relate to the Lord in the personal form. Even the ashrams, the four spiritual orders, brahmacharis, grihastas, vanapras, and sannyasis. The sannyasis are considered the head of the universal form. Vanapras, the arms of the universal form. And the grihastas are the waist, and the brahmacharis are the legs. Therefore, the conclusion is we've got to chant and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the instructions of this bona fide spiritual master. Both the Lord and spiritual master are persons, so the Virat Rupa is actually not for devotees, but based on what the person that you meet, their understanding is, you can relate things. If you can't take the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a person and relate that way, especially the impersonalists, then this is to help them to come up to the stage of relating to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a person later on. Thank you for coming and also for listening. We all learn together. Hare Krishna. Now this is the time to, if you have a question, to unmute yourself. If you have a realization that you want to share, a connection to something you already know, to talk about this one, you can certainly do that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, all goes to the Prabhupada.
I was having this realization, and after hearing the sufferings of a soul once they leave their body and they have all this anarthas that are not cleansed, I said to myself, I was in the kitchen and I said, "Oh, Krishna, please get me out of this crazy dungeon, because this should be enough to make us purify ourselves, to really check our behavior. That explains why we hear from the acharyas, from seniors, exemplary character and behavior, because it just takes such behavior, such wrong behavior, bad habits, to say that, to put us into those sufferings, liars, duplicity, cheating, the list goes on, right? Just hearing this, if one does not want to snap out of their maya, then my God, all glory, not all glories, but I was sorry for them. So I was thinking this is a rude awakening for us to really be careful of our actions, our behavior, our words, our association, and I think that's the thing, it's just like we just take life for granted, we take things for granted, we take each other for granted, we take the Shastra for granted, and if we take all this for granted and we do not fix ourselves, then we can be one of those, in this hot boiling oil. I know, but I've had hot oil spill jump on, splutter on my hand because from frying, and it scars my skin. I can't imagine being thrown in a hot pot of boiling oil. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you don't wish that to be on your worst enemy, but it's bad.
Not at
Horrible.
all. Absolutely not. So, yeah, we need to really, be exemplary in our character and behavior, because that is, at least for me, that is the concluding point, is how to be exemplary in our character and behavior, our words, our minds, our thoughts, and our actions. And just fixing all that up, we can avoid all of these sufferings when we leave our body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So yeah, this is there. That's why Sukadeva Goswami described these the hellish planets, and this is just only some of them. Even the ones that he talked about, I've only described. I've managed to almost get to half of the description. There's even more. And for the sake of those who have some Christian background who may be listening now, who had it before, they talk about hell being fire. Well, yeah, there's some parts that if you hear hot boiling oil, obviously it is fire that causes oil to heat up like that. We all know that. But it's not just fire, there's varieties of punishments that's there. So, there are some religions that are just talking about only one type of punishment for everybody. That is not true. That is not true. It's more, there's way more varieties in different planets, where hellish planets where the person gets taken to, that has lived a life that is negative. So there's way more than that. And that's why Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender. You would hear everything in detail. Hare Krishna. Now, if we take devotee life seriously, devotees don't go there. If you take it seriously. If you don't, then, well, that's your choice. Hare Krishna. Yeah, now that, please come on.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada. All glories to the devotees on the call. uh, while hearing you talk about all these uh, like descriptions of the hell or hellish planets, I was remembering certain things from my childhood. Like my grandparents, they used to tell this thing, right? There are places where you will be like, if you do wrong things, you'll be uh, put into hot oil and all these things. So I was thinking that there was this culture of discussing all these uh, descriptions, Bhagavatam discussions in those days, when like in those generations and generation prior to that. In recent times, the culture is lost. Uh, everyone is just like looking for their well-being and trying to get their material life settled, uh, all these things. And many times what happens is when I hear these things, when I heard kind of this thing, so we normally feel that how pessimistic is that? You have all the negative thought about the religion, or you want to follow your religion because there is a negative thought. But it's just the description to get those kind of people on neutral side, kind of, I would say, that they stop doing all these bad activities. That was one of the things. And other thing was like these points were just the glimpse that that the generation transferred. They didn't transfer the whole philosophy, and that's the reason many times today's generation, they don't want to follow the principles. Many times I feel like that they don't they are not given the whole substance, and they feel like, okay, I don't think it everything is correct, and they don't feel like following these things. So going forward, the what I was I was thinking that how important it is that we keep on transferring all these the whole substance to the next generation, because it coming generation will have a bigger problem than today's generation. Uh, and the generations are changing like anything. 10 years, if we look at it, me and my father, that feels a generation gap. But now I and even the youth, today's youth in the temple, feels like there is a generation gap in that as well. Like it's just like 5 to 10 years of gap, and in that I feel like there is a generation gap. But the past, I feel like uh, 30 40 years, that's the generation gap for me. you know so yeah, these things are very thought provoking for me. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, this is what you're talking about, the generation gaps, and just basically decreasing from the way it was earlier. It's just a sign of how Kali Yuga is progressively worse. So anyone who thinks about coming back for next life, you're not going to come back to find a life that is a little bit tolerable the way you lived here in the material world in this life. Next life, there's no telling. As a matter of fact, the decision is made by the agents of the Lord what body you're going to be put in. Now, we also know that even as human beings, there's wars in different countries going on all the time. What if you get put in a place where there's war happening? Immediately, life is miserable. So people are just assuming, oh, I can be put in a nice life. No, you don't make those decisions. You do not make those decisions. It's the Lord that makes those decisions. Now, the whole idea of bringing this and spoken to Maharaj Pariksit by Shukadeva Goswami is not to scare devotees. We should definitely have what's called a healthy fear, but that healthy fear has to do with how well I'm taking Krishna consciousness. How serious am I taking Krishna consciousness? If we're not, then we should be more fearful of the fact that we are sabotaging our own selves. Because the more Krishna conscious we are, the safer we are. The less Krishna consciousness, less Krishna conscious we are, then the chance is there that somebody will spend some time in the planet like one of those that we described. So we should live at least at the mode of goodness. Honesty, because now we know a person that lies, there's a place that, a person may spend some time there. Hellish planets are absolutely horrible. That's why we talked about some of them today. Now, again, there's misconception that a person goes to hell forever. God is not a terrorist. You don't have finite number of sins in a lifetime and then get punished infinitely. That's not the case. It's not maybe a different kind of God, but not the God that we worship that created everything. He's not like that. Hell is for punishment. But we brought it up to see how severe the punishment can be. That for every moment is actual horrible, horrible, horrible situation. And unfortunately, some people in some religions, and they have said it themselves, so now I was not going to talk about it, I'll just come right out and say it. In the Jewish religion, they don't believe in hell. But look at all of these hellish planets that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam and exactly what happens there, the names, the place where it is, and what happens there, and what kind of sins gets a person there. So when Krishna says abandon all varieties of religion, he's actually helping us just surrender to the Lord, Hare Krishna, and stay with this particular process because it has the truth. Any other comments?
Yeah, I want to add a point, and that is,
Yeah.
As devotees, we should not have the consciousness or the mentality that, oh, because I'm a devotee, so I can, I can be dishonest, I can get away with it because I'm initiated. I can get away with this because I'm, because that is dangerous. That is very dangerous. So yes, devotees may not, go to that extent, but at the same time, we should not take the devotional process and the practices so loosely and lightly and simply because I'm initiated, so my bases are covered. Like I know, when I was growing up as a Christian, there was one pastor that gave a sermon in church, and he said that, those who are alcoholics, when they're drunk, the whole week they drink, and then when it comes to a Sunday morning confession, they come to the pastor, make the confession, sit in the church pew, and think my sins are forgiven. And then after the church service, they go out to the bar again. So I think that is a very, it's just like, that's a very dangerous consciousness that I'm thinking that even as practicing devotees, we should be very careful. Just because we are devotees practicing, trying to get to the stage of, whatever, whichever stage it is or initiated, we should not think because I'm this, so my bases are covered, that's not going to happen to me. That's the reason I think I was having this realization. That's why Prabhupada, not only Prabhupada, our acharyas, if we read, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the passions of the six Goswamis, and, Nathan Das Thakur, the list goes on. They're always speaking about how to purify ourselves by having exemplary behavior, character, austerity of speech, austerity of mind. All these are repeated in our Shastra and our scriptures to get us to the stage of being clean. Because Krishna wants us back, but he wants us clean. He doesn't want residues of envy and residues of dishonesty and, and debris of lies and this and that. He wants us clean, Atma Nivedana. So that is the process. That's why we are being reminded so much of the chanting and the chanting and the chanting, because the more we attentively chant and the more we focus on our chanting, the hearing, the reading, it helps to increase our purification of cleaning our hearts and our minds, so that we actually improve in our character and our behavior, our actions and our words, so that we can become clean at the end, So these are not for non-devotees, is what I'm saying. It's for everybody. Everybody.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we brought some of these up just so, all of us would know what is there. devotees are to try to improve on a daily basis. Yeah, what the example you gave of a priest talking about how some alcoholics would just drink and then come during confession time to make confessions and then start all over again the next week. And Srila Prabhupada has condemned it totally, people who live like that. But not only Srila Prabhupada, not just Srila Prabhupada, it's in our 10 offenses. 10 offenses against the chanting of the holy name. The 7th offense is to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting of the holy name. That's what that means. That a person is committing sinful activities and say, oh, well, I can just chant. And when I chant the mantras very powerfully, it will relieve me of the sins. Therefore, I will just chant. And even though I go on with my sins, I'm all right. I can just chant and it will be forgiven. The Papa said that is the greatest offense to think like that. First, your Prabhupada admits, yes, the mantra can purify us, but we should be determined not to fall into that same sinful trap again. So that the process of purification is very, very critical in a devotee's life. So can some devotees be put in a situation like that? Well, let's talk about just briefly about, I didn't mention that nobody goes to hell forever. But the punishment is so bad that even if you are there for moments, how much disturbing that is. A person that is in the mode of ignorance acts in any of these that gets put in any of these hellish planets. Yes, at some point they will be released from the hellish planets, but then it doesn't get good. Why? Because they will not be put back into a human body. That's the next part of it. That's part 2. The person now takes birth in a non-human body, determined by the Lord's agents. And now you don't have the intelligence to even understand God, because all of these non-human bodies, they don't understand God. Cats and dogs and fish and all, they don't. And it takes literally hundreds of thousands of years, sometimes millions of years, before the person gets an opportunity to be in a human body again. So sliding down is dangerous. Sliding down spiritually is dangerous. But we're not trying to instill fear. We're just trying to put more of a determination to be better. Because the good thing about this is, if it's consoling, the more effort we put in this process of Krishna consciousness, the more effort we put in to do it well, then that attracts mercy. The more merciful the Lord will be. In other words, it's also possible that we have tried our very best in Krishna consciousness to follow the Krishna consciousness do's and don'ts. And the time has come, and Krishna has given us the mercy that we don't go to a hellish planet. We don't play with the opportunities that are there, the mercy that's there. Don't play with it. In other words, I will get mercy, therefore. My sins will be forgiven, therefore. We don't do like that. We shouldn't. But the mercy is there. We put in the effort to be good. Then we attract the mercy of the Lord. And then these hellish planets will be for somebody else. We wouldn't have to deal with it. Hare Krishna. Any final comments? If not, then thank you very much for coming on to here today. Is to help each other. This is the whole idea of association. Association of devotees is to help each other to grow like that. The Lord is kind and is very merciful. And if we're making the effort, that's the key point. If we make the effort, the Lord will take us back. Even when we're not 100% pure, the Lord will still take us back. I mean, back to the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhesya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Shri Prabhupada.